Okay, today I'm just going to do a short little video on an issue that I had. One of my cameras that I had located on my TV tower got chewed up by a squirrel looking for nesting material. Right now it's springtime. It's May 7th, 2018. And cut through the wires in the camera. So luckily this camera was still under warranty. This is a put my glasses here and let you know what this is. This is a 4 megapixel HD IP IR bullet camera NTSC. The model number is LNB 4163-C. Input DC 12 volt PoE, and this is of course a Lorex camera. But they sent me a replacement, and they haven't asked for this one to be returned yet. They haven't sent out an RMA. So I thought I'd just take a quick look at it and learn a little bit more about it. The camera that they sent to me as a replacement, and I'm pretty sure I'm supposed to send this one back, but the one they sent to me is the one that was actually supposed to be sent with the NVR setup that I had initially ordered from them. When I had gotten the system, they had actually sent me these cameras, these 4 megapixel, but they were supposed to send me a 3 megapixel. And so the new one that they replaced it with, as you can see, it's got the power connector and the Ethernet connection. And this is where the squirrel had gnawed it off right here. But this one is and I'm sure they're pretty much the same as far as the cable. And this is a 3 megapixel HD IP IR bullet camera NTSC, model number LNB 3163-C. So this is the one that they sent as a replacement. You can see this one's still got the plastic on the front cover. Let's see if I can get this off. You can see that the IRs are different than the IRs of this camera, so I'm not sure. I looked up this model and it should go the same distance, which is 130 feet or 75 in complete darkness, but you can see the difference in the design of the IRs. Okay, so with that said, I'm going to give you a little bit of information here. A standard Ethernet cable is going to have 8 wires. You're going to have, in a PoE situation, starting with, I believe, pin number 1 through 8, you're going to have orange, white, orange, green, white, blue, blue, white, green, brown, white, brown. And the wires that I see that they have here, as you can see, they've got an orange wire, a blue wire, a yellow wire, a purple wire, a gray wire, and a brown wire. After doing just a little bit of research on the internet, I came up with a schematic. And that schematic I'll be putting up so that you can see and discussing a little bit more with it. But how this was normally attached, I took a knife and I just, since it was already ruined, I cut this apart so that I could try to see. And what I see here is, I don't know if you can see that or not, you've got wires that are actually soldered right to the ends. And in here you've got, starting with pin 1 over on this side, you got pin 1, pin 2, pin 3, and then pin 4 and 5 are actually soldered together. And then you've got pin 6, and you've got pin 7 and 8 on this side. And 7 and 8 are soldered together too. And I'll be showing you, I'll post up something on my computer when I make the video showing you how that works. But so yeah, if you're looking at the tab down and you turn it around, you can see where those are located at. Okay. So basically the way this is assembled made it extremely difficult to figure out which wires go where, but I was able to take my knife and I was able to carve away at the plastic and get a visual on the wires and what pins that they go to, and use the schematics that I found on the internet to get just to make sure that they matched up, that everything matched up. So this is the way it normally sits, and you can see that there is a piece of rubber that you can actually, if you're careful and you take a screwdriver, you can pry that off. And how that normally sat in there, let's see if I can get this in there, slid onto here. And of course you have this piece sits in there. I don't know if you can see that good enough. And then of course your wires that go into the end. And of course you have, yeah, this. So I cut this off, and then I noticed that the blue wire got clipped when I cut that off. So yeah, you've got 6 wires. You've got brown, purple, blue, gray, yellow, and orange. And so then I had to cut this off, and then I realized, wait a second, that just pries right off. And then you can take a screwdriver and get in between. There's some little slots, and this pries out. And then you can get at the solder leads. Now I could go with a standard PoE configuration. I've checked with that, and that matches up pretty close. But when you do that, you're not going to have those pins 4 and 5 and 4, 5 and 7 and 8. You're not going to have them soldered normally. So I'm going to test one of my PoEs that I have for my wireless business, a 12-volt PoE, and see if I've got 6 volts going down each of one of the 2 leads, and see if those are 6 volts. And if it is, and they're not combined together, you're not going to get your 12-volt DC. You're going to be underpowered. In which case, a person would want to make sure that somehow that those leads, even the ground ones, when you're talking about 4 and 5, and pin 7 and 8, that those are somehow terminated together, because normally they wouldn't. And this comes from the camera, so you realize you've got on the way, you could have your Cat 5, your crossover cable, PoE cable, orange, white, orange, green, white, blue, blue, white, green, brown, white, brown, plugged into here. And then on the camera side, when it's soldered, the leads from the camera, a couple of them are combined. So if you were to just do that on this, if you were to just say, for instance, put an Ethernet plug, let me see if I can find one here. So if you were going to attempt to use an Ethernet plug and just run the cables down there, you're going to have 6 cables, and you're going to have 2 of the 8 that are not going to terminate, and that could be a problem. So I will investigate that and include that into the video as we continue. So that's where we have it so far. That's what we're looking at. I'll be including the solution that I came up with on the tower. What I did was I used some of this, it's a reflective, it's called Reflectix, Reflectix. And they've got a number here, 1-800-879-3645, written on the inside. And what I did, and this is kind of like an aluminum with a paper backing, and so you peel the paper off, and then you can stick this to the side of your tower. That way birds and squirrels are just notorious. I'm so mad at squirrels, but you can tape this to the tower against the cable, and that way squirrels and birds can't get at it to chip away at it. Another thing that I like to do is I like to use this stuff, this weather stuff that I use for my internet business, which is, it's just a black, kind of like a stuff you would see, not sure the name of it right offhand, but if you look up weather sealant for wires on the internet, you can find this stuff, order a box of it. What you can do is this stuff stretches out, and it's really sticky. Once you get it onto your fingers, it's kind of hard to get it off. But you can usually get it thin and then wrap it around the wire. And once you do that, any rodent that bites into this is not going to enjoy that. But what you can do is, when you wrap this around your wire, of course you'd want to do a better job than that. But then you can come back and use electrical tape to go back over it, over top of it. Now, electrical tape has, you want to go one direction with it, like so. And then, now of course I'm doing this messy, but so I can get it off. And then when you want to put 2 layers on it, because it's going to have a shedding effect, kind of like a shingle effect when the water hits it. So you're going to want to come back over it the other direction and making sure that it overlaps when you wind it around. That way the water sheds off. And you will have your maximum protection for keeping water out of these connections if you've got these cameras located in an area where there's going to be a lot of moisture, a lot of water, stuff like that. As you can see, this stuff is notoriously sticky, and that's a good property. That'll help shed the water away from it. But if you use some of it and you just go against what it is, you can usually pick it off. Now, of course, I put some on the power end because I don't use this power end. I only used the Ethernet end, so I had some of this black stuff on here, and of course I can come back and get it off by just doing this. Okay, but I had some of that on this end, and then I also used electrical tape and taped it up, wound it around there, keep water out from out of here. Okay, so that's where we're at so far. On to the next part. Okay, the way that I ended up having to go was to put an end on the cable, an RJ45 end. You can usually pick up these ends pretty cheap over eBay. They usually come with a bag of RJ45 ends, and they come with a crimper to crimp the ends on. You just need to insert the end tab side down into it, or whatever the crimper may look like. You just insert it in and then you crimp it down. and it ends up crimping a little piece of plastic to hold this in place, and it also crimps the little metal tabs that are in there down, depresses them down. What I ended up having to do, oh, and by the way, usually when you buy a kit like that, it'll come with a cable tester so that you can test your cables. You just plug an Ethernet into one side and Ethernet into the other side, turn it on, and it'll test all the wires 1 through 8. It'll flash to let you know that the cable is making a connection. So these are kind of handy. Just have to put a 9-volt battery in it, and those work really well. Save you a lot of hassle if you put an end on wrong, and for some reason your device is not working. That's why sometimes you don't crimp it tight enough. Another thing you'll probably need to pick up, and you'd want to get this somewhere else, is one of these couplers where you use RJ45 on both ends, and then you could just plug this in, and then plug your cable either going from your NVR to wherever you have it, like if you have this on a tower. So you want to weather seal this really good before putting this in some kind of situation where you'd use it outdoors. This camera would still be good to be able to use indoors. If they tell me to pitch it, well, then I'll keep it and maybe put it down in the basement or save it as an extra. But yeah, if you have this, then you can just go between these two. And I've used this. I've got some of these down in my basement. For the cable that the company gave me was, I believe, 60 feet, not enough to go outside, and it's indoor cable anyway, and I wanted to use my own outdoor rated cable for outdoors in the tower. So I ran that wire up my tower and then inside my basement, and then I used these to join the 60 foot of cable that they gave me to the cable that goes outside. Okay, so just to let you know, again, the wires that are on this are brown, purple, orange, yellow, blue, and gray. And terminals 4 and 5 are joined together on the end that they provide. But it doesn't matter. And yeah, 4 and 5 and 7 and 8. Gray for 7 and 8, and yellow for blue and 5. Now if you look at this, what you can do is when you're looking at this with the tab down, one's going to be on this side. So you'll start it off with brown, and then the next slot purple, and then the next slot orange. And then try to keep that fourth pin, that fourth slot, when you slide these wires in, you got to kind of finagle it. But leave the fourth pin empty. I'm sorry, pin 1 brown, pin 2 purple, pin 3 orange, pin 4 or 5, slide yellow into 4 or 5. So you can either leave 4 or 5 blank. Just make sure the yellow goes into either 4 or it goes into 5, and then make sure that the 6th one, which is going this way, is going to be blue, and then number 7 and 8 on the very end. Either 7 or 8, you have to put the gray wire into 7 or 8, and so you just fit the end on, and you just kind of play with it until they go into that. And you can see which slots are empty and which ones are filled up. And just remember to look at that really carefully. And when you get that on, just go ahead and crimp it down. And as you can see, it does work. It works now. But this is going to be a situation that it's either really, really well weatherproofed if it ever goes outdoors ever again, or it's going to have to be used in an indoor situation where water and moisture won't get at the end. So I hope this was informative, and if you've got a Lorex camera that for whatever reason got its end cut off or chomped on by a squirrel if it was outdoors, and maybe your camera is out of warranty and you would rather not toss it in the garbage and have to buy another $180 camera. With shipping and handling, probably ends up around $200. But yeah, if you want to save some money and keep using this is one thing that does work. I would say that you can find these on eBay pretty cheap. You can usually buy these, I don't know, you might even be able to find them at a Radio Shack. They might be a couple bucks a piece. The crimper and cable ends and a tester, all this stuff, probably you could find this on eBay for 15 bucks. So altogether, of course the tester, the ends, and the crimper, I'd hate to think that somebody's buying all of this and they're never going to have a use for it ever again, but you never know. You get to, once you bought that, you can keep that. You can buy these ends, either a bunch of them at a time or just probably 5 at a time on eBay. I would say the whole fix, maybe around $15. So yeah, you can save some money by fixing this, and it's worth trying. And so at least everybody out there knows the color code on this particular model. I can't imagine that any of the other models are a whole lot different, and any of the PoE, and PoE stands for Power over Ethernet, I can't imagine that any of them are really any different as far as their color code. Okay, so I hope this helps. Thanks for watching.